President Trump's nominees continue to plow through the congressional confirmation process. I mean, he's got them in the pipeline. But there's been a few that have raised concerns, and there's one right now that's raised particular concerns. Dr. Oz, the TV personality nominated to lead the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. Some Republicans worry about his views on transgender surgery on kids as well as abortion, considering he had previously voiced support for them in the past. Has Dr. Oz changed his mind on these issues, or is he evading really answering where he stands on these issues? Here to discuss this is one of the senators that has raised this issue quite successfully, Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri. He serves on 4 Senate committees, including the Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions. Senator Hawley joins us by phone. Senator, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
You've raised this concern about Dr. Oz. You've asked him questions before the committee regarding his positions on these issues such as abortion and transgender surgeries for children. What has been his answer?
Well, so far, no answers, Tony, and I want to be clear on this. This is the position I've taken with all of the president's nominees. I want to make sure that all these folks are supporting the president, that they are aligned with the agenda that the president ran on. You know, we saw in his first term, there were quite a number of people who slipped through, who then got into their positions and actively undermined what Donald Trump had ran on. I don't want to see that, and I'm not going to vote for somebody who I think is going to undermine the president's agenda. So in this case, when it comes to transgender surgeries for minors, I'm just dead set against them, and so is the president. When it comes to hormone treatments and puberty blockers for minors, I think that's wrong. So does the president. And the problem is Dr. Oz has supported that stuff in the past. And I'd just like to know, is that still his position? I'd like to be sure that he is in alignment with President Trump, and I can't vote for him until I am sure about that. Ditto on life issues. You know, in the past, as you said a moment ago, Dr. Oz has criticized state laws that protect life. But, of course, we have the Dobbs decision thanks to President Trump and the justices he put on the bench. I want to know that Dr. Oz supports the Dobbs decision and supports the right of the voters to decide these issues, the people and their elected representatives to decide the life issue and to protect life. I think that is absolutely vital.
Well, and as you've said, you have been consistent in asking the various nominees these questions as they've come before your committees. But let me ask you, what exactly did you ask Dr. Oz, and what was his response?
I asked him if he changed his views on transgender surgeries and treatments for minors, which he has supported in the past. You know, you mentioned, of course, he had that TV show for years, and he'd had doctors on there that performed transgender treatments, people who had gone through transitions, so-called, including children, and had been very supportive of all of that on his show. And as recently as 2022, said that he supported hormone treatments and puberty blockers for minors. Now, that's not the president's position, and certainly not mine. So I just asked him straight up, have you changed your mind? And I would hope the answer is easy, yes. I'd hope he'd say, I don't support any of that. I'm in line with President Trump. I asked him the same questions on life. I pointed out that he's criticized state laws protecting life, and I just asked him, listen, do you support Dobbs? And do you support the right of the people and their elected representatives to protect life? It's an easy question. I mean, it's just asking, do you support Trump's position? Do you support the position of Republican voters nationwide? And he hasn't answered me at all, Tony, which I find a little bit strange. I hope is just a matter of processing some paperwork or something. But, I can't support him until I know that he is going to be strong and going to be in alignment with the president.
Now, have you sat down with him as you have some of the other nominees?
I have not. I'm not on the committee that voted on him, and that's a reason I didn't get to ask him questions in the hearing, so I've sent him written questions. Happy to talk with him, of course, personally. I don't know him personally at all, but sooner or later, I think we need to get answers on this. Certainly I do, and I just say again, it's important to me that people who want a job in this administration at any level, and of course I've voted for all the president's cabinet nominees, but some people say, oh, well, this is a lower position, doesn't matter. Now, actually, I think every position is important, and anybody who wants a job at any level in this administration needs to support the platform the president ran on, needs to support what we believe in as conservatives, and needs to support the president's positions.
Isn't it normal practice that these, I know they start with the committees and they make their rounds meeting with the members of the committees to have the conversations and to make sure there are no issues. But, you know, when you've been a very clear, outspoken voice in the Senate on the life issue, on the issue of protecting children from these invasive, irreversible surgeries and experimental drugs, wouldn't it be appropriate for him to communicate with you?
Well, I would think so. I mean, it's easy to answer questions and listen. I mean, senators do this all the time. I do this all the time. And you might remember, we talked about when I sat down with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.,
right,
and I had a lot of the same questions for him. And I put these same questions to him, and he answered them very forthrightly, both to me personally and then again in public under oath. I asked him in his committee hearing directly about all of these same things we've been talking about, and he answered them directly. And
which helped his nomination, which helped his confirmation.
On that basis, I voted for him, Tony.
Yeah.
I mean, it was critical to his confirmation. I needed to know that he was in alignment with the president, and he did not hesitate to take the clear stance that he would, and that involved, frankly, in Kennedy's case, renouncing some of his past views. So this is pretty standard,
right,
and I'm a little surprised Oz hasn't done it, but there's still time, and we'll see what he says.
We just have about a minute and a half left, but a spokesman for Dr. Oz told the Daily Wire that he understands the harms of these transgender surgeries and that he is, quote, committed to implementing President Trump's agenda for protecting children. But that's coming from a spokesman, not him. Is that a concern?
Yes, and it is a concern. Listen, I'm glad that unnamed spokespersons are willing to issue those statements. I would hope they'd say that, because, again, these are the president's positions, but really we need to hear from the nominee himself. He wants to have a very important position in the government, and we need to hear from him directly. Is he in alignment with what the president has pledged and committed to, what he ran on? And if the answer to that is not yes, then I can't support him, and we need to hear soon.
Well, Senator Josh Hawley, appreciate you fighting the good fight on Capitol Hill, standing up for life, standing up for children, protecting them from the dangers of these experimental treatments that are designed to advance this radical gender ideology. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.